My name is Sitarama Maruvada. I am director at Lenovo's Saas Cloud. Today I'll be talking about enhancing enterprise software delivery with confidence through FeatureOps. Why we needed FeatureOps? We have a complex ecosystem of software applications and the technology stacks. So we have cloud solutions, obviously, but we also have multiple devices which run embedded clients and as well as agents that are installed on it. We have mobile technologies, pretty much covering the entire spectrum of the technology stack. So, and we have an active user base that are using these applications. And to deploy enterprise software without disrupting the existing user base, the alternatives are very, very costly. We would have to have parallel infrastructure that gets updated first and then turned over live. And any other alternatives are redundant and expensive. A fine-grained context-aware feature control system is what we needed. And we wanted feature toggles to be granular, to be controlled at a feature level, and they should be context aware. What might be a context for one feature toggle may not be the same for another one. So it should be dynamic and what in the context that we pass. And this allows for faster experimentation and rollouts and improving the innovation speed with which we can roll back and quickly kill the feature as soon as the testing is complete. So why Unleash? We wanted to select a solution that meets enterprise needs. Enterprise grade security is of paramount importance. Fine-grained role-based access control and SAML integration is something that we needed to tie up with our corporate LDAP. And Unleash provided an excellent security control in terms of both integration with SAML as well as the role-based access control at a project level and at a feature toggle level. And additionally, there is a clear demarcation between the client APIs and the administration APIs. So the administration APIs can be put behind additional restrictive controls independent of the client access. And that allows for us to provide more security to who gets to access and define the feature toggles. Integration capabilities are something that we also wanted, given the technology stack we had. Unleash had an agent for pretty much every single software of the technology. And if there was no client agent, for example, a single page application, there was a proxy which could be used in cases like Angular single page applications. And then robust experimentation features were available in terms of the number of strategies, not only the rollout percentage like 0 to 10 or 200. There were strategies that you can add on to based on the needs, by example, IP address based filtering or A/B testing. And then the good part is you could combine these strategies in one feature toggle. So very quickly, our entire team adopted Unleash. Everybody started saying, put the feature behind an Unleash flag. Even the pre-sales started to use this terminology. Product management, engineering, and quality assurance, of course, were very familiar with the concept. Since we started to use Unleash, we have had decoupled deployments, and we deploy continuously without having to worry about if it will break something. And there were surgical rollbacks which allowed us to turn off a feature or like a kill switch just to prevent access of the feature if we were not happy with it or if we are already done with evaluation of the feature. Context-aware toggles, we could pass a variety of context information and dynamically it would evaluate and provide a feature response based on the user environment. It could be customer name or ID, or it could be something to do with the user ID or IP address specific to a particular user. And then the zero trust feature governance. So more restrictions on who can define the features and who can manage the features versus open access to the toggles themselves, evaluating them from the client invocations. there is capability to federate instances. We could have multiple instances, and using the API export and import features, we could keep these instances in sync through scheduled jobs. So looking ahead, we want to start adding more and more features from Unleash. A/B testing and gradual rollouts is something that we want to take up next. And speed and safety is something that has already been established. Our SWAT teams take the first go at any new feature, and they put these features behind a feature toggle, evaluate the value, and then turn it for further enhancements and future developments. So they use these for the time to market, and the speed is of utmost importance for new features. Intelligent scaling. Scaling feature delivery intelligently to meet growing demands without compromising performance is something that is very key to the new features and the competitive market. In future, we also plan to start using the edge client adoption, and that way we have more instances in proximity to the customers, and that increases the speed of evaluation, with which we can quickly check if a feature is enabled or disabled. In conclusion, the key points are the strategic rollouts and a safe way to deploy new software with confidence, a governance model that is robust and secure, and allows for continuous innovation, where we keep developing new features and deliver them with confidence. Thank you.
Thank you to Sitarama for walking us through your Unleash journey. And I love how put it behind an Unleash feature flag is basically becoming part of the daily vocabulary. And yeah, my favorite part was also that non-engineering teams are starting to use Unleash as well. And it's something that we see at our company too. Like to quote one of our excellent engineers, Simon, he says that we use Unleash to unleash. So of course we use Unleash internally very heavily, but not just in the engineering team. So our marketing team is also a huge fan for using Unleash to optimize the website experience. And so it's great to see that some other non-technical teams are getting involved as well. We have a lot of kind of large enterprises like Lenovo, Ivar. So what would you recommend if an enterprise was just about to get started with feature flags? What should they be paying attention to?
I think at least typically the conversation starts with how do we get a proper structure? Because if you're going to onboard 100, 200, 500 teams into the same tool, if you don't think about the structure ahead of time, you can always fix it later with Unleash, which is one of the power, but it's easy to create a mess if you don't have a plan. And how are you structuring team? What is how do you group flags together? We call that a project inside of Unleash, but what does that mean for your company? And we see that companies operate differently, but trying to group it in a way that makes sense for the people who's going to use the tool will take you a long way, because if you mess that up, it can be really hard to understand the structure, and if it's hard to understand the structure, it's going to be chaotic in the beginning. And also, if you have all the teams having to figure this out for themselves, you will find 10 different ways to name a flag or to name a project or to group things. Are you grouping it per product? Are you grouping it per team? Are you grouping it per department? And it can be a bit messy if you're then going to navigate across all of these things. So that is something that we spend some time on initially, to come up with that initial plan together with the customers. And then obviously all the basics, the security stuff, the compliance stuff, it varies from company to company, but typically you want to enable SSO, you want to enable SIM, you want to make sure that you can remove users who leave the company in a concrete way, and don't lose sight of all of those things. Hello there.
Hey.
Hey,
thank you again for your talk. We really enjoyed it. We have some questions for you as well. Specifically, I was wondering, you mentioned that the traditional blue-green deployments you were doing were too costly and not as effective for Lenovo. Can you elaborate a bit on why feature flags are a better solution here?
Sure. So no matter how hard we try to replicate the entire set of services and everything, there is always the database layer which we cannot replicate, and there are things that you cannot potentially roll back. So going live is always an option, but with the control that we have around the features through Unleash flags, that way we are able to reduce the cost and also always be able to release. There are no rollbacks or surgical. I mean, the surgical rollback is what takes the kill switch takes the place of the rollback now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So how I think actually about that problem is that you're moving the focus from the old way where you had to roll back to a previous version to a different mindset where you're actually only thinking forward. You can fix problems, so you will apply new versions, but it's forward looking, and it's a lot easier when you think about the problem in terms of software in that way, because suddenly you don't need to think about like the side effects of a rollback. What about the data? What if you migrated the database? How are you going to migrate away a column that didn't exist in the previous version? Then you lose data. So yeah, I think it simplifies a lot, actually.
Especially the DML statements. I mean, data you can always roll back, but once we have altered the structure of the tables themselves, it's very, very hard to go back.
Yeah, yeah.
And for an organization at your scale, security is one of the most important things. So was it difficult to get a tool like Unleash approved? Like, what's the security review process?
We, when onboarding to Unleash, we ran our internal security scans and pen testing at Lenovo. And we didn't find a whole lot of issues, but there were a few in terms of like the OWASP top 10 categories that is there with any software. It keeps growing and you have to stay on top of it. So the initial set we coordinated with Ivar and his team, and Unleash resolved all of them, and we adopted it. And of course, I constantly see security patches being released. So it's always on top of the changing trends that are evolving.
Absolutely. I think I actually also have a question in terms of how did you manage to kind of take Unleash into the organization and get more and more teams adopted into the platform and into the tool? What was kind of your strategy there?
So we have a multi-region, multi-tenant solution, and multiple teams also are developing the features across the board. So Unleash has the concept of managing these through projects and giving access level permissions at a project level, and then you can tag these features, group them under the projects, and that was a easy part of it. And then between the teams themselves, and we established a nomenclature. So we had the project level guardrails, but also at in the naming convention, there was flexibility to name these in a certain ways to avoid collision. And together, I mean, all of us could coexist and do our work without stepping on each other's toes. So, and now, I mean, it's not just the editors of the feature toggles that are the project teams. It's actually customer support and pre-sales are also using it. So they have their own space and they can go in and check which toggles are enabled or released, and they can coordinate it with the release dates and the actual announcements that we make.
How did you get non-engineering teams to get involved? Were they asking for it, or what was it like an awareness thing that you've done a presentation on Unleash, or how did it work out?
A couple of more than 2 years, 3 years ago, I think, when we first started mentioning feature toggles, they weren't aware of, not everybody. There were few who were aware, but there were some who were asking, what is a feature toggle? And now I think it's already built into their vocabulary. It was their interest that they jumped on it and then started requesting access and then looking at the toggles. And I think they're all familiar with the concept of feature toggles pretty well now.
That's really great to hear. Cool. Ivar, unless you have any questions, I think we can wrap up. And thank you again, Sitarama, for your time and insights. And it was great to have you as a speaker today. And with that, we'll move on to our final talk of the day, which will be from Prudential.